Nothing more to tell. Chapter 3, Trip. I set the application down on the counter. I just cleaned up Brightside Baker and started the words at the top of the page. The Kendrick Scholarship will be awarded to the most well-rounded student in St. Ambrose senior class, as chosen by school administrators. I scanned the rest of the document, but there's no definition of well-rounded, nothing about grades, financial need, or work experience. This is pointless. I head to an empty room. Well, mostly empty. The owner's dog, Al, is ridiculously fluffy, sampanoid, thumps his tail at my words. Don't be happy. We're not happy. I tell him, but he just drools in response. Happily. I exhale in frustration as Brightside owner Regina Young comes from the kitchen with a fresh tray of Pop-Tart cakes. They're not much like the real thing except for their shape and size and the rainbow sprinkles on top. Regina makes them from vanilla cake, cream cheese frosting, and her secret recipe jam filling, which I could eat by the bowlful if she would let me. Why aren't we happy? She asked, setting the tray on the counter beside the cash register. Leaps up at the sound of her voice and races for the counter, then sits quivering beside it in anticipation of a treat, which he never gets. I wish I were that optimistic about anything in life. I slide off my stool to help her load the cakes into the display case. Regina finished making this batch early, so we have time before people start lining up at 4:30. I'm not the only one in Sturgis who's obsessed with these cakes. That Kendrick scholarship is a joke, I tell her. She rolls her shoulders and adjusts her kerchief that she uses to cover her shorts while she's baking, and then steps back to give me access to the case door. How so? The sweet, fruity smell of the cake hits me full force and my mouth waters. It goes to the most well-rounded student in the senior class, I say, lifting my fingers in air quotes before pulling a pair of plastic gloves from the box beneath the counter. But they don't find it, so basically, Grizz will just give the scholarship to whoever he likes best, which means I'm screwed since he hates me. There's no point in even trying. I start arranging the Pop-Tart cakes in neat rows, making sure they're exactly 1/4 inch apart. Regina leans against the counter. You know what I like most about you, Trip? I'm passionate for precise measurements, I ask, squinting at the display. Your can-do attitude, she says dryly. I grin despite my rapidly souring mood. I only speak the truth. Go on, then. Keep talking, Regina says. Get all that negativity out of your system. Then fill out the application, send it in, and hope for the best. I make a face to hide the fact that I'd kind of like it when she sounds like a mom. Well, not my mom. The last postcard I got from Lisa Marie Talbot was 7 months ago. The last postcard I got from Lisa Marie Talbot 7 months ago was of the casino in Las Vegas where she works, and all it said was, full of craps. I will, I grumble, eventually. And I clamp my lips together before I can spew more complaints that Regina's already heard. She can read my mind, though, and she changes the roll of paper in the cash register, and she adds, offer stands, you know. Every time I moan about the fact that whatever financial aid package I managed to scrape together for college probably won't cover room and board, Regina reminds me that she and her husband have a spare room, now that only 2 of their sons live at home. I know it's still Sturgis, she says, but if you need to chase a pace, just say the word. I got the familiar offer from my friend Shane, except it was more along the lines of, dude, let's just live in my parents' apartment in the South End when we graduate. When I took him seriously, though, and asked when we could move in, he remembered that it's rented out. But the place in Madrid is free, he said, like Spain and Massachusetts are interchangeable to someone who doesn't even have a passport. Whatever, it's not as though I actually want to live with Shane, but Regina? Maybe? After years of just me and my dad, hell yeah, I need a change of pace, but I was hoping my next step would involve a new town too. When I first heard about this Kendrick scholarship, I had hope. It's brand new, funded through a grant from Rich Alumnus, and it's for $25,000 a year. For 4 years, that would cover some state schools and get me close to a full ride at UMass Amherst, which is where I'd really like to go. I told my guidance counselor it's because of their exploratory track program, so I could consider potential majors based on my interests and aspirations. The real reason isn't admissions essay friendly, though, because it's big enough and far away enough that I could maybe start to feel like a new person there. What makes you think Mr. Griswold doesn't like you? Regina asked, sidestepping out to sweep a streak of dust off the display case front. All her kids went to St. Ambrose, so she's familiar with Grizz's nickname, and still hyper-plugged into the PTA. Half the time she knows more about what's going on in school than I do. Because of the shelves. Oh, come on now. Regina plants her hand on her hip. He could not possibly hold a disagreement that happened with a former contractor years ago against that contractor's child. He can and does, I say. When I was younger, my dad used to occasionally do carpenter projects at St. Ambrose. In 8th grade, Grizz asked him to make built-in bookshelf for his office, which my dad did, but then he finished and gave Grizz the bill. Grizz and says he never agreed to that price, would only pay 3/4 of it. They argued for a few days, and when it was clear Grizz wouldn't budge, Dad made his move. He went to the school over the weekend, dismantled the entire shelving system, and repainted the wall like he'd never been there, except for the note he left for Grizz. Changed my mind about taking the job. That's the thing about my father. He's Mr. Mellow until you push him too far, and then it's like a switch has been flipped. Grizz was lucky that all he got was some unbuilt shelves, but he didn't see it that way. He was beyond pissed, so there's no way he's handing Junior Talbot's kid $100,000 for college. Okay, so maybe Mr. Grizzle isn't your number one fan, Regina says. But, he's not the only decision maker, right? Miss Kelso's got a big say, maybe the biggest, and, let me see. She taps her chin, pretending to be lost in thought. Wasn't she just in here asking you for a favor the other day? A favor that you foolishly declined to provide? No, I say. Oh, come on, Trip. I'm not doing it. You're saying no to free college? I'm saying no to that committee. It's too weird, I protest. Regina folds her arm and glares. It would be weird for me to help make a memorial garden for someone I pause, swallowing hard. Someone I found. I spent years trying to forget that day in the woods with Mr. Larkin, although not for the reason Regina might think, so I guess I can't blame her for believing that the Larkin Memorial Garden Committee is a good opportunity and not a total fucking nightmare. It's not weird, it's respectful and helpful, Regina says, and maybe healing. Her voice turns as gentle as Regina ever gets, which isn't much, but still, points for effort. You deserve to heal as much as everyone else, Trip. I don't answer, because my throat might as well be filled with cement. I can handle a lot, but not Regina Young, earnestly telling me that what I deserve when she doesn't know shit about the things I've done. Besides, you know damn well Miss Kelso needs some muscle, she adds. There's heavy work involved, and you St. Ambrose boys aren't famous for filling up the volunteer committees. She steps back behind the counter and points her finger at me. So stop whining and do it, or I'll fire your pasty ass. You're bluffing, I say, although I'm honestly not sure, and I hate to lose this job. Regina pays better than anyone else in Sturgis, and Brightside is kind of like a second home, one that's a lot cleaner and better smelling than my first home. The bell on the door jingled, half dozen guys wearing yellow and blue striped jerseys, shoving one another. Fall lacrosse season might be over, but indoor league is still going strong. What's good, T? Shane calls in a booming voice, dropping his bag beside one of the large window tables. Then he gives my boss the most charming smile. Hey, Regina, we'll take all the Pop-Tart cakes, please. Regina shakes her head. You get 2 apiece, and that's it, she says as the other guys start grabbing napkins and drinks. I'm not running out before my regulars get here. Shane puts his hand over his chest like he's clutching a wound, shaking a strand of dark hair out of his eyes. My father calls Shane Ronaldo after some European soccer star. Dad claims he looks like. How, after all this time, are we not considered regulars? Shane demands. To each, Regina repeats sternly, her mouth lifting at one corner. Even though Shane is always on his best behavior around her, she can never decide whether to be amused or annoyed by him. One day, Shane says, flopping into a chair, one glorious day, you'll let me have all the cakes I want. My life will be complete. Your life is too complete as it is, I say. He grins and flips me off. Regina comes up beside me and tugs at my sleeve. I need to get some muffins in the oven, she says. Put Al in the back, would you? Technically, Al isn't supposed to be in the dining area, even though nobody in Sturgis cares, including Regina's cop regulars. He always goes in the storage room once it gets crowded. Yes, ma'am, I say, with a salute that she ignores, and she shoves the kitchen door open and lets it close behind her. I lure Al away with the promise of a cookie, which he falls for every time, and offer a bowl of water as a consolation prize. Then I get back behind the counter and ring up a giant order on a bunch of different bank cards. As soon as I finish, everyone is sitting down to eat. The door jingles again and a girl steps inside. Playtime's over, Shaney, I hear one of the guys mutter. Your wife's here. Shane's grin only slips for a second before it calls out, Hey, babe, and accepts a kiss from Charlotte. Want some cake? No, I'll just get a coffee, Charlotte says. She's wearing a black coat with a lot of buttons and straps, and takes her time in doing them all before draping it over the back of an empty chair. Black with honey? I ask as she approaches. She rests her hip against the counter. You know me well. You realize that that's a weird combination, right? I've been working here almost 2 years, and you're the only person I've ever met who puts honey in their coffee. Charlotte's lips curve into a smile. I like to stand out. She has no problem doing that. Charlotte is the kind of girl who's heard you should be a model her entire life. No awkward stage ever for Charlotte Holbrook. It's not like there's any one thing about her that's extraordinary. When Regina asked me to describe Shane's girlfriend, I said, "She's pretty. Brown hair, blue eyes, a little taller than you." Then Charlotte walked in and Regina shook her head. "Pretty," Regina muttered under her breath. That girl is pretty like Mount Everest is high. When I get Charlotte's coffee ready, she says, "Did you check the intranet today?" "No, it's on a break," I remind her. "I know, but class roster went up. I want to see who I'll be spending my final semester with." I just grunt. She slightly swats my arm. "Some of us care about things like that, you know. Anyways, guess whose name I saw?" "Who?" I asked, unclasping a bottle of honey and squeezing it over Charlotte's cup. "Bryn Gallagher." Charlotte's eyes drift towards Shane's table as he lets out a little laugh so she doesn't notice me almost drop the honey. I don't think Charlotte knows that Bryn and I used to be friends. In all the years Charlotte and I have hung out, we've discussed Bryn Gallagher exactly never. "What? Bryn Gallagher?" Charlotte repeats, returning her attention to me. Then she frowns. "Trip, that's too much." "Oh, shit." It's honey overload in Charlotte's coffee. "Sorry," I said, holding out so I can start over. There's no point in trying to convince her to accept the extra sweetness. Charlotte is rigid about her coffee to honey ratio. "Did you say Bryn Gallagher?" "I said it twice," Charlotte says, her eyes narrowed as she watches my second attempt. "That's weird," I say, aiming for the nonchalant tone. I don't need Charlotte wondering why I'm suddenly incapable of performing the simplest tasks, considering she doesn't live here anymore. Charlotte lifts one shoulder and shrugs. "Maybe she moved back." "Too bad for her," I say, handing over her perfect coffee. "There you go." "Thank you, Trip," Charlotte says, turning away without paying. She knows I'll put it on Shane's card. She heads back to the table but doesn't pick up her coat from the empty chair. Instead, she just stands there with an expectant smile until one of the guys sitting next to Shane moves over so she can take his seat. Charlotte doesn't give Shane an inch of space. She never has. Since we became an official couple at the end of 8th grade, he used to be just a Velcro to her, but lately I see signs that all the togetherness might be starting to wear on him. Like now, when his mouth tightens as Charlotte settles herself beside him, but then relaxes into a welcoming smile, and I wonder if I'm imagining things. It's not like I'd ever ask. It's not like I'd ever ask. Shane, Charlotte, and I have been friends for almost 4 years, but on the surface level, we talk about school or TikTok or sports, or Charlotte's favorite subject, which is Shane and Charlotte. There's a much longer list of things we don't talk about, including the unspoken rule that we lived by since 8th grade. We never, ever talk about what happened in the woods that day.